Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Jed from Your Guitar Academy. Today we're going to be looking at Iron Man by Black Sabbath. So in this tune, there are 6 riffs that happen, if you can consider the first thing a riff. So the intro riff in this tune, we've got the bass drum is hitting each beat of the bar. So like this. In fact, let me loop that. So we've got great. So this is a drum and guitar intro. And what's happening on the guitar is we're going to be playing behind the nut. So this is slightly unusual. Actually, I think depending on what guitar you're playing, it might be easier or more difficult. But what's happening essentially is we're going to pluck the low E string and we're going to push down on the string here behind the nut to raise the pitch of the note. And what's happening there is we want to raise it up a tone. So we're going from E to F sharp. So in the song, I think we have 8 beats. And then the guitar comes in. So essentially that happens 3 times. The first 2 times you let the note ring out for 8 beats, and then the 3rd time you let that note ring out for 6 beats, and then the main riff comes in. So for example, if I play this intro guitar part, I'll play it as if it's the 3rd time. So I'll let it go for 6 beats and I'll jump into the next riff. So it would sound like this. Cool, so then we're into the main riff of the song. So here we're going to be at the 7th fret on the guitar. So this song's in the key of B. Interestingly, when it starts, it's kind of the tonality of E, but then it jumps into the key of B. The riff is using power chords. So you can play these however you want. You can play it. I use index finger and ring finger, but you could do index finger and pinky. So we're starting on the 7th fret. We're moving up to the 10th. And we hit this twice. So what's happening there is I'm hitting it, sliding up to the 12th fret and then hitting that. So we've got... So effectively you hit this 12th fret chord twice, but the first time is via sliding into it. So everything in context so far, we have. Then we're going to jump up to the 15th fret and do this. Now what's happening here is I'm plucking the 15th fret and then sliding down to the 14th. We slide down twice. The last time we pluck the 15th, but we don't slide down. So again, from the top, that should sound like this. And then we have the last 2 bits, which is... So the last part of that riff is going to be the 10th fret twice, and then the 12th fret twice. I think there's a little mute on those 2 hits on the 10th fret, so we have... Yeah, so what's happening there? The first time you hit the 10th fret, you're going to mute it and then hit it again. So... And then again, you slide into the 12th fret. So the first one of those chords on the 12th fret, you're going to slide into that and then hit the second one. So we have... So all of that together, this first riff should sound like this. Now let me just go over some of the other things in it. So here's a subtlety that's important, I think, is from this first power chord, so this 7th fret to the 10th fret, if you slide from the 7th to the 10th, it sounds more authentic to the riff or to the track. If you don't do that, you can see if you can hear the difference. In fact, if I do that throughout the riff, you can hear how strange that sounds compared to putting the slide in. So you have. So on the way up, when we hit the 10th fret, we release our fingers. And on the way back down, when we get back to the 10th fret, we do that again. So it's only at the 10th fret do we ever take our fingers off the fretboard. Also, another important thing, this slide from 7 to 10, as soon as you land on the 10th fret, you want to strum it. So instead of this. So as soon as you land there, strum that chord. Another important thing about riff 1, when it's played without any vocal, it's played with power chords. But when the singing comes in for the verse, it's just played as a single note line. So it's the same riff, but played like this. Now, the way I play this is just with my first 2 fingers. So I think you can play this however feels comfortable. It's exactly the same frets, but let's look at any subtleties that might be there. So we've got exactly the same riff, just played as single notes. So everything is the same except for the 15th and 14th fret. Instead of sliding, I'm changing my fingers like this, which means I'm going to pluck each note individually. So that is one of the main differences, is instead of this, we've got. So riff 2, it's going to be in the same place. We're starting on B. It's again a single note line, and this is what it does. So it goes. So the way that I think about this riff is it's like one riff that repeats 3 times, and the 3rd time, the ending of the riff doesn't happen. So let me talk you through what is happening. So we've got 7th fret. I'm going to pluck that twice. Then we do the 10th fret. And I put a slight bend on it. I think that's what happens as well in the track. So then we return to the 7th fret. Then we move down chromatically. So we hit the 6th fret once, then we hit the 5th fret 3 times. So after that, we're going to hit the open E string once, and then jump to the 4th fret on the low E string, hit that once, then we go to the 5th fret, hit that twice, then the 6th fret, then the riff repeats itself. So altogether it's this. So on that third time, we stop the riff before the open E string. So. Drum fill. And then you return to riff 1. Okay, so next we have riff 3, or you could consider it the chorus of the song. We're going to be doing power chords here on the, I suppose it's an A position power chords. For some reason, I now use my pinky when I do this. I don't know why. When I play the main riff, I'm using my ring finger to play these power chords, but for some reason it feels comfortable to use the devil horns of rock to play these A-shaped power chords. So that's your first note, first chord even. So that lasts for a bar, so you got... Nobody wants him, he just stares at the world. Cool, so the first chord, 1 bar. The second chord is also a bar. So we're going to hold this down, sustain it for the whole bar. The second chord is a D chord, D power chord. D5, 5th fret on the A string. Then we return to our B power chord, 7th fret on the low E string, E position power chord. Going to hit that twice. Then we run up the blues scale, but with the major 7 in it as well. So that looks like this. And we're doing that twice. So we hit the B power chord 2 times. Then we go 7th fret on the low E string. Yeah, 7th fret on the low E string. 10th fret on the low E string. Then we land on the 7th fret of the A string. Then we pluck that again and do this chromatic run. So that is 7, 8, 9 on the A string. And then the same thing on the D string, 7, 8, 9. So you got... You could think of them as little chunks of 3 notes. So you got 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, if that helps. So that whole chorus riff, or riff 3 in its entirety is this. Riff 4 is interesting because we've been in the key of B, essentially, the whole time, but we're moving up to C sharp, so that's 2 frets up, and this riff is just the blues, descending the blues scale, and there's also a slight increase in the tempo, it's like a tempo shift here, which is really fun. So this is a riff that goes into the guitar solo happens, then the riff comes in again and goes back to the original key, and the tempo drops again, which I really, really like. I like that feel change. So this comes after riff 3. So we've just gone, this is the end of riff 3. So we jump into riff 4 there. What it is, interestingly, it's very staccato. So each note is very short and muted after you play it. So you've got... So what we're doing there is descending the C sharp blues scale. So we're starting on the 11th fret of the D string. Hit that once. Then the 9th fret of the D string. Then the 11th fret of the A. Move down chromatically. So 10th fret, 9th fret, 7th fret. So there I'm doing kind of a position shift from box shape 1 to box shape 5, essentially. And then we do 2 notes of the 7th fret on the low E string, and then 2 notes of the 9th fret on the low E string. So there's that, there's the riff again. So we got... So the last riff in this tune is what I call the outro riff, or I guess it would be riff 6. Actually, the way I've talked about this, I think the first riff I've actually called intro riff, and because I think about riff 1 as being the main riff of the song, so the main riff being. I don't know if you can consider this a riff. Let me know in the comments. Give me the definition of a riff. But anyway, we have this outro riff, which we return to this intro behind the nut thing. So that happens, and then we've got this. So I love this. This is one of those like signature Sabbath things, because you've got this moving bass line. So I'm going to put the bass part on the guitar behind this, just to give you a bit more context of what it sounds like. I think they use a very similar bass line in the song Black Sabbath, by Black Sabbath, from the album Black Sabbath. The bass line goes like this. So you got. So what that is just as a side note, is a descending thing starting on E, and it goes down to D, then D flat, and then C. And so this guitar part happens over that. So this is what it sounds like. Bass part and guitar part. I'm just going to turn that down a little bit. So here are the two together, just to give you a bit more of a sense of it. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I think there's a guitar solo, so that's all happening. It's all happening in the tonality of E, so it's kind of returned to E, because E was at the very beginning just for a little bit. Anyway, let's look at how to play this riff. So it's, what box shape is that? That's a great question. So if that's 1, that's 5, that's 4, and that's 3. So we're in box shape 3 here. So we got. So I treat this first note, we pluck it, and I do a pull off to the 5th fret. So we're on the A string, 7th fret. So I'm doing 7th fret, pull off to the 5th, and then I'm plucking the 7th again. Then we do a hammer on and a pull off from 5th to 7th. And it's always good to put vibrato on some of these notes, especially this 5th fret, if you go. Because you're there for a while, so it's good to give it some feeling. Then we do that first part again. So again, that's 7th fret, pull off to the 5th, pluck the 7th again. So all of that so far. Then we're going to jump to the D string and play the 4th and 5th fret, and we do this. So I'll talk you through that slowly. So we got 4th, 5th, 4th, 5th. Yeah, 4, 5, 4, 5. Then we do a hammer on and a pull off from 4 to 5. And then we land on the 5th fret of the A string. Rhythmically, I think it's like a triplet feel. This So again, in context, that is. So one thing I'd like to mention is the structure of this tune. I haven't gone through the structure here with you because we'd be returning to the same riff so many times that it would become probably confusing and a bit tedious. So the structure of this tune will be in the description below in a write-up for this. So if you learn each riff, then you can look through the structure of the tune and play along to it. So with regards to the solo of this tune, so we've jumped from the key of B up to C sharp. What's happening harmonically is there's a lot of pedaling of the C sharp note. So when Tony Iommi solos over this, it's basically minor pentatonic and blues. If I create a little backing, so we've gone... So we'll just imagine that's what's happening for the solo. And this kind of thing's going on. And then you're back into the song. So over the solo, that C sharp chord, it's all just blues and minor pentatonic. So C sharp, minor pentatonic, it's just the first box shape. Maybe the second. There I was doing like the fifth, first and second box shape, kind of moving around the top part of the second and the lower part of the fifth. And what will we do? Things like... I mean, Tony Iommi was, before they were Black Sabbath, they were a band called Earth. And I think they were a blues covers band. So all of this stuff is coming from the blues. Especially things like that. We've all seen that before. So it's blues derived. And there's some really cool ideas Tony Iommi does where he does these kind of pull-offs. In fact, I feel like I'm leaning on Eric Clapton here, the feel. But there are those kind of phrases where you do a pull-off. So here I'm doing, just for an example, on that B string, so this is that first box position. It's pulling off from the 12th fret to the 9th, and then and that's on the B string, and then landing on the 11th fret of the G. So, and you can use that idea, you jump to the next set of strings. So there I'm just doing it on the E string, so 12th to 9th, and then landing on that 12th fret on the B string. And you can create your own solos doing that. So again, I'll just give you one more example because it's fun. Here's my pastiche of Tony Iommi playing in C sharp minor. Okay, thanks very much for tuning into this video. Hopefully you found that useful. If you have any queries or questions, all the information should be available in the description below. If you would like to look at the solo of this tune in more detail, please let us know. Otherwise, thanks very much, and I'll see you in the next video.